Hi, good night. Because you can tell the time this is being shot, clearly it's way past the time of the sun. However, it should be popping up in a couple of hours. What I do like about this time though is quiet, and I can mimic my thoughts since thoughts don't usually shout. I don't know how many people have like their thoughts shouting in their head, like being like, "Hey, how are you doing?" I'm sure even my neighbor is possibly like, "What the hell is this girl doing at what almost 2 a.m.?" So my fatigued subconscious is like, why in the world am I doing this right now? At the same time, it's a very interesting blend when you're half awake, half asleep. If you have insomnia, perhaps you could relate to this. It's as though you are in a different state, in between what is lying in your subconscious, what normally you access in your dreams, and you being conscious, which is your constant decisions and processing of that decision stroke thought. So this is going to be just a once in a blue moon late night talks when this fiasco tends to happen. It might be more often than not, but I like keeping them to myself. It's the one time I would say in the latest weeks overall, honestly, that I tend to enjoy personally. Just a cup of tea, sometimes it's coffee, depending on what I'm doing, and just enjoying thoughts, enjoying the process. What brought me to this conversation today is the creativity funk, I would say, that I've been going through recently. When I look at Petri, there's this time when I started with my Instagram, I started doing black and white. At first, it was initially just being like, yeah, Instagram is supposed to be colorful, popping, full feature. Let me show you everything. I went into cut half black and white, writing poetry and matching things that brought little joys to me that were not so obvious to everybody else reading. And I enjoyed that. I enjoyed it being that, yes, it's a public space, but I have things in that particular poem or in that photo that has reference or connotations that only I would recognize. I'll try as much as possible to make it something that everyone could understand, but it was not necessarily my aim. It was my aim to share my art while also talking to me as an artist to reference for the years to come. Well, clearly, I'm not in the mood to write because me trying to write down in a diary is not working. And my fastest and easiest way of consuming information as well as updates is through video. So I decided, why not then delve into video? Why not do this instead of it being just an image with some text that sometimes I may have lost what the clue and the context of that text was, I'll be honest. To seeing the emotion, to seeing the background, the memory in itself, in that when I do reflect back on this, uh, I can strongly understand where it's coming from and what it's about. Now, does that mean that the purpose of the platform is just to be nonsensical and not give any information or anything that is useful? No. I would say that the fact that I was trying, I think this is a thought that came by when I was preparing to do new videos and new posts that I had started doing on Instagram. Before I had like I think two back-to-back major blows that I think I'm still processing. And the thought was, I advise all these clients, like I'm just looking at my boards and I'm just seeing everything I've written, and I advise all these people based on knowledge that I've gained, something I've went, 10 best ways to reach your audience, 10 best ways to start your YouTube channel, how to make your Instagram grow, all these things. And I was like, do I really care how many people come to my platforms? Do I? Or is it that those who do are and who stick around, there is something there that we can relate. We may not necessarily have that one-on-one. Hey buddy, how you doing? How have you been? I'm not in that space. So do I wait until I get to that space and then tell you how to get out of that space? And then I ask myself, didn't you grow by going through that space? Whether it was a negative space or a positive space, to a point where now you can give conclusive points on how to get out of it. And so I understand why in this context, and again I stand to listening to I'm open to different views as to, are there those who actually chase, still trying to do everything the wrong way, then everything that has been said should be done in a particular way. I will reference to when I think in mathematics in school, I never was that good with the mathematics, and that's what I used to tell myself. Up until this one point, we were doing one of these exam papers. Like, oh my goodness, I do not even remember how to do this formula. And I was like, okay, I'm going to figure out how to solve this because I'm not going to present an empty paper. And I did this whole long method, long route. And I remember when the lecturer was giving back the papers, he was like, yeah, you went not the wrong, the long route and still got the same answer. And I got fascinated with the idea of the derivative. Like, what if I understood how E equals mc squared? How did he come up with that? What was going through his mind to get to that point? And the fascination of understanding the making of became something that I drew my creativity from. The asking the question of why a box, right? It could be a universe, a planet, another time dimension. Again, why the particular box? It could be a box. It would be just in context of general things. And I know, again, it's not to be taken literally, but I just bring back that thought process of, yeah, something is taken literally, you want to understand, or it's taken as metaphor. I would want to understand why that metaphor, how did it come about to be as such? So as I was setting out to put my whole branding, I felt uncomfortable. I was like, nah. So I have to label everything via box across all my channels, have a similar color, talk about similar topics. I'm like, okay, so which topic do I choose? Do I choose the African Continental Free Trade Area? Do I talk about dealing with, all these other things that can come up with pressure of work, which would be anxiety and self-doubt and that whole other route, and how to cope with that and still manage to be productive? Or do I talk about self-improvement and things that I would be focusing on, that I continually do to self-improve? Because I believe we are perpetual works in progress. Here's another analogy that I would say that I tend to reference, is that if we look at ourselves as a painting, our story is unique to ourselves. Everything, from the good strokes to the bad strokes. So even that one time you nearly decided to ditch your whole painting or scrap it off, everything formulates that thing that makes the wonder of you. But we've become, and again, this is up again to the discussion. My observation is that we've started observing other paintings so much, we forgot to observe our own. One. And then two, we also sometimes draw the same paintings like factories. We do the same system. Look at a school, you're all graded on the same system, when there are those who have an aptitude either for sports, an aptitude for music, an aptitude, or rather generally for arts, for athletics, for even the books. Others have the aptitude for the theory, the thinking, the creativity. Yet we measure all that with one system. And so when the whole social media thing is happening and people are starting to feel like they're left behind, or they're like, damn, that person is living the life, or like, that person is courageous to even share, their own pains publicly. Whatever the story is, we admire that painting. I started asking myself then, have I been advising like my clients and companies to create similar paintings? maybe just change a color here or change the day and the format here. And something that whenever I worked with different people, I would try and add an element of imperfection into it. I know this is ironic given the fact that I am talking about perfectionism, but my perfectionism goes to the extent of that there would be a small element of perfection that would mean that what I've produced will always be unique to that job or that task or that item I produced. And the more I did that, and the more I got my work appreciated, the more I started stressing because then that it churned out faster than I could go through my creative process of doing that. I like when I create a brand or create a story around a brand to really observe, to listen to the conversations. It's not necessarily about, just about the product. I like talking to the people themselves. What are their ambitions? What are they looking for? Understanding the reasoning, the why of what they want to communicate to others. And then I tell a story around that. So when you start to feel like I enjoy the projects, honestly. I enjoy the programs and the projects to a point where I was putting so much time into that, but I wasn't putting enough time into what I wanted to do, what I wanted to paint. Who am I? Who am I painting as this being? And then in the last 2 weeks, damn, my mother used to say that you're baptized with fire, though I'll be honest. In this life, there'll always be somebody ahead, somebody behind, somebody who got it better, somebody who got it worse. If you try to compare with another person's skill, you will never win in a skill. But if you compare in your own skill, there's an intrigue to it because then it's a measure that you feel driven to go for. Not necessarily looking at every other thing of painting, you look at your own painting. And in questioning that, I started to, or rather, the events that have happened, I unraveled in a way that I haven't unraveled in a while. And it felt cathartic in a way. It's like, I feel it. I can feel it. I feel the sadness. I feel like I've hit my limit. I used to think I'm superhuman. I'm like, shit, I hit my limit. And it's not hitting my limit in that I could not produce it, but I hit the limit because now I was starting to internally resent myself because I wasn't focusing on my own painting, my own story, and what I was writing and what I want to produce that are my little joys, the poetries I used to write. My thought process or my creative process was like this. I would take a picture and then from that picture what would be the story from this picture? What would this picture tell if I cut it in half or a quarter, whatever I'll do? And then I choose a title. And once I choose that title, I make sure it's 2 letters. And from those 2 letters, one stanza will be focused on rhyming the first and the next stanza on the second. It doesn't matter which order, it could be this one first and then the second one, but either way, the story being told in the poem will still connect to what is in the picture, which again is connected to the title. And I'll do this in a weird sequence in a way that there will be a story that perhaps I created a few weeks ago and then I continue this other week. It's as though leaving small hints for myself in the narrative that I'm writing that I enjoy. So for those who've enjoyed or rather like the content I was churning out that time, because clearly I've not been doing it for a while, it was I guess perplexing, but like what the hell is she saying? I kind of see something, but what the hell is she saying? That's the feedback I used to get from my friends. And they would be like, yeah, I like it, but I still don't get what the hell's going on. I was like, yeah, then we're good. We're good. You like it, the content? Yes. For now, it's my own little pet peeve that I have something in there that is designed specifically for me. And then my creativity became on demand. And I would say on demand loosely because self-sabotage was part of it, self-doubt, another thing. And I was uncertain. I was trying to set my life on a particular path that ended up not going that way. In this whole time with COVID and seeing how with Zoom calls and more programs and documents, something that is somewhat like I can handle this thing when you're churning out papers and documents and the likes and how important and relevant they are. They got to a point where they were coming faster than you could even churn out and process what happened in 2 meetings ago, that they require an output that needs to be put out the next. And that just set a firestorm in the imbalance that was happening up here, in the sense that my creative side slowly but surely started resenting how much I was giving out and contributing more towards the paintings of others while I wasn't doing the same to me. What drives me being conversations where I allow myself to be wrong, I allow myself to be right, and I allow myself to understand that it's not about right and wrong. It's about looking at different perspectives and how people, through their own unique experiences, have come to the conclusions that they have had. And so when we are having those conversations, and I come in with my own perspective and my own myriad of how I came up with those conclusions, you start to appreciate when either your perspective slightly shifts or even majorly shifts, or you have an aha moment, like a serendipity of like, you were the missing puzzle to my conundrum of why X doesn't fit to Y, or even they themselves also coming in with the idea of like, oh, damn, that perspective as well, like interesting. And you have this conversation, it's not a fight, rather like a ping pong of ideas. And you feel safe to do that. I am so grateful of the experience I had as a volunteer and the organization I was in, because it taught me a lot about empathy and making people feel comfortable when we have those conversations. Case in point, when I was younger, I was not. I was confrontational. I had a point where I was not really communicating. I would vent, or my method of communication was silence, or you could tell with my face that I'm angry and things like this, and that wasn't in any way or form helpful to whoever was involved in that whole situation, especially with family. And I would decide to communicate through dance or expressive art. So when I joined this organization, I started interacting with people, and their basis was more on that understanding. This one line I like, and I think it's also on my emails, is that first you need to experience the world. When you experience it, you begin to understand it. When you understand it, then you can change it. And it's somewhat like my own personal philosophy. I like listening at times and trying to understand the perspective and where something is coming from. If there's something I can intervene or something that we can discuss and build up on a perspective or come up with a solution or come up with a way forward. Particularly, again, you'll notice I keep using this type of words because I'm interested in solution-oriented type of conversations. I like problem solving. I like generating ideas. I would say if you were to do like in a game, how in a game you have like with a character, especially RPGs, if you play this type of RPG games where it's fantasy drama and you choose whether you want to be a warrior, a finesse, a sorcerer, or I don't know, a farmer, or one of you get what I mean. Your skill sets are kind of limited, but you have strengths in certain things. My skill sets are in seeing something or people bringing in ideas, and I like putting here to there to there. It's like puzzles, and they're so exciting and they're beautiful. And then when I translate them into visual art, especially when I translate my emotions or translate a realization I've had, and these are experiences that are my own and people who are also around me, to some point also fictional experiences from what I've also gained from watching films and reading and the likes. My reading is kind of also limited in a way, because I'm, again, big consumer of videos. I would be intrigued by the whole setup of from here to there patchwork. And when you see something come from an idea to something that is done, I feel this sense of I think as an artist, or even generally, it doesn't even have to be an artist. Anyone who enjoys what they do or have done something, a couple of times that you felt like I put my energy, effort, and you were part of a team, you contributed, and this thing is here. It could be something abstract, it could be something physical, it could be something as a service, but it's there. From a point where it didn't exist to being there, there's an excitement and a thrill around it. So my perfectionist nature would come from, I'm very particular how they have to come from an idea to there, something that exists in any way or form that others can see, where it's not just up here, or not just about my thoughts, where this time of hours I just enjoy either putting like low jazz music and just letting my mind flow, thinking around the week, thinking of what affected me positively, negatively, neutral. I always have to do the three. Even neutral, I would be curious, why was I neutral towards that? Does that mean it's a repetitive task? Or does that mean it's something that is not necessary that has to be in the system? Then again, must you always be on a positive impact? Like everything impacts you positively? Is there something that you gain from also having a little bit of a negative impact? Is it self-inflicted? Is it something that happened because of choices you made? And this type of thoughts, I like to think and reflect back, and then I take accountability if it's something that I have caused, and if it's something that I have done to others, then I have to take that accountability on that. Because if not, my subconscious is going to keep on making the dreams come up. I'm telling you, this is why this is a perfect time to talk, because I'm like, if it was to portray the two characters, yeah, my table is shaking. I would be, one side is like, oh my God, we need to talk. Why did you do this? And the internal critic, though she understands as well with the empathy, how I talk to other people, she has to talk to me that way. Otherwise, we're not going to have a conversation, and then it's going to be a whole whirlwind. But as I mentioned in the beginning, of late, that has not been happening pretty well. And I've decided to give myself permission to do so, which means cutting down on the work and taking hours for myself. If I have to stop and the pressure is just becoming too much, I have to stop, regardless of the deadline, regardless of all these things. And then I figure out, what have I done in the system that got me to a point where I could not deliver whatever it is that I need to deliver on time. Some things are within my control, some things are not within my control. All in all, if you don't think about it, if it's something that is within your control that you can adjust, then it's going to keep on repeating. It's going to even get worse once you realize, like, oh, damn, how would I actually change that? To wrap this extremely long message, I was planning to make it just 15 minutes, is that I finally decided that I'm not going to follow the rules the same way I somewhat did it. I would kind of employ some of the things that I've learned in the business and the trade, but I'll put my creative side first. And when I started striking that deal with myself, that realization kind of hit me today. My friend was around and I was like, why do I have to do the same type of logos and coloring and everywhere? What if each platform is a different segment of me on the type of content I would like to produce? Say Instagram, I have T3 and I have this one which I'm calling Maya Box, which I'm going to change because the title didn't feel right for me as that platform. I didn't feel that's what I wanted to put there. I feel Maya Box would make sense on YouTube, because this is where I want to make this type of longer videos to get you to see the thinking process, or when I finally produce high quality videos with the effort that I ought to do because that is the kind of quality I want to put out, and the reason why I even stalled so long. And then I look at Facebook, and I look at LinkedIn, and I look at Twitter, and I'm like, all these platforms, I use them differently for different contexts personally. So then why don't I narrate it that way? I don't have to call all of them Wire Box. My professional line on LinkedIn could be my professional one on LinkedIn. Facebook could remain like my youthful days, because I remember that's when I started, I was quite like, I had to look through my thread. I was like, dang, girl, back then you were really opinionated and vocal, and I would write it. Then somewhere down the line, I started holding back my opinions and being extra politically correct, if I may say it that way. As I was torn between, am I trying to say things to please people and be there, or would I keep quiet and be like, I see this, but do I feel comfortable to share? Or be that I do want to share, but how do I share this? Oh, let me share it in a way that maybe perhaps you may not know that I actually said that. It doesn't make and bring us to the context of what we're trying to achieve here, and which is sparking the conversations that I feel make me happy. Now, let me correct that a little. I want to spark conversations so that I can broaden my perspective on things. That is my joy. That's how I learn. I like learning from other people's paintings or painting my own painting. And when I came to that mode of thinking and acceptance, I started feeling a sense of like, I feel like I've gotten a step again. I've gone a step again. So here are a couple of things to expect. That's another thing I learned, how to set expectations, because I've been in situations where we didn't do proper expectation settings, and either they had different expectations or I had different expectations. It can come from the personal side to even the business side, where you had different expectations. And because I was like, I don't know how to do these expectation talks, I'm like, oh. And then what happens? People get disappointed, and it becomes a whole, murky thing, and you have to take the accountability and go back and take ownership of what you've done and have that type of conversation. So as I've been learning about this and taking those steps, I realized that, hey, I can set this as well, starting this off, which is I am not necessarily the very, hi, how are you doing? Being straight out saying all my fans, I'm gonna be hi, full on energy. I may not be that way. I want it to be like, we're friends, we're here talking, we're having conversations, not putting me on a pedestal. That's something I realized, even from small experiences I've had, is not something I enjoy at all. I would rather we all are at the mountaintop, and then we're influencing things based on how we're interjecting, like a computer. I don't know whether that's how it actually works, but my thought process, maybe I go back to the brain. Synapses firing, they share information here, information and information there. So you have people firing informations from their own expertise, what we call value chain, right, in business. Like, you take it from the soil. It's, the farmer puts in the seeds, they process the seeds, there's someone who transports, there's someone who packages or cleans, there's a person who puts them in the store, then you buy as the end consumer. Like, there are people who can, that serendipity, through conversations, contribute to something. And I have some things that I feel that I don't have all the puzzles and you have the puzzles. That's how I would be seeing this engagement. Then the other thing would be that I would be switching it up. I am not going to remain on a one track of my colors will be a certain way. This channel will remain called the same name all through. I might decide tomorrow to wake up and just call it like I'm not here. And I have the freedom to do so. So if you understand that that is a granted freedom that I want to use, then it would be a matter of you like and follow. Let me sound like the typical, so that way at least you always get to know when the coordinates of this little box in time will pop up. And that excited me even more, thinking that if next month I want to change the schematic to go a certain direction in a certain color, fine. It's my painting. I can do whatever I want to do with this painting. All in all, I want to make sure that as I do so, I also take into consideration your experience here. And not to come to a point where I focus so much on just trying to put out something that I think you want to hear. Rather, be myself in every way or form. And hopefully in those conversations that we'll have, Some would be conversations, some would be just outright, I just put out something as an art. Here's an art, Then you're building your own paintings and we contribute to each other's perspectives of life. So yeah, I'm gonna stop here, let you think on whatever I've said so far. Finish my now cold cup of tea, so I'm gonna go add more tea in this. And then take like a really nice long weekend nap. I like it when this Fridays when I can be able to do this when I do this thinking. I just sit down all the way till the late night and then it's quiet. So I'll just keep quiet just to give you a context of what I mean. Beautiful silence. Beautiful silence. Though there was a particular noise I used to enjoy I can't even say it's a while back, but still processing that one. So well, that is still going on. Either way, I would be having this in my own room and, be in the silence where on occasion you hear a dog bark or a car pass, and I'm like, where is this people coming from? And appreciate the conclusions I've had in the reflections of that week, and then look forward to an improved person in the next week. I believe that if you do, even if it's a centimeter change of something, eventually you'll have gone 1 whole kilometer. Versus you trying to go a whole 1 kilometer when you're not even prepared yourself in understanding what it means to go that inch by inch by inch. And I want to enjoy that process. So, yeah, this is one of those once in a while, depending on again when they pop up, thoughts in the AM. Be yourself, figure out what makes you happy. Sometimes you have to make a compromise and selfishly also look at, and I'm using again selfishly, loosely, look at what drives and makes us happy so we don't burn out or strain the relationships of those who are around us, those bonds that we have forged. And more importantly, not to end up with a painting or rather a canvas that is just a standard brushstroke. You're already unique. Your whole experience to this microsecond to even watching this video with the possibility of not even having reached through this point. Very unique. I hope we get to do some interesting things. Oh yeah, and that's the other thing. I intend to keep this channel only alive for 5 years. Technically, I've already started per se, but by 2025, I should be out of this and then skip to something else. That is a compromise we agreed on. Since my video is done, I only have 1 minute 31 seconds, so I'll be, yeah. So that's the period of time. That's what we agreed on, and you'll be catching me in this space-time box. If you know how to get here, once in a while, is something that would be relevant. I don't want to do again that whole thing of saying every week because what if it's not something relevant again to my context of what I want to build on? It's a two-way street. So I'll catch you when I catch you. Have a good night. Ciao.